The following program is made possible by generous gifts from partners of Hinn Ministries and viewers like you in this area.
Some of the most fascinating programs I've ever done on This Is Your Day, I'm doing right now with Jonathan Cahn on what God is saying to us through events that took place in ancient Israel that are happening now, that began happening with 9/11. This is absolutely fascinating. Your book, The Harbinger, is the most mind-boggling book, I think, written in a long, long time. He was with me for the last few days talking about how events in ancient Israel relate to what's going on now in America. So precisely, so perfectly. A verse in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 10 says, "The bricks are falling down. We will build with hewn stones. The sycamores are cut down. We will change them into cedars." That verse was spoken in defiance of God's judgments against the Lord. And the Lord said that to Israel. He said, "You've spoken those words now in the pride of your heart." That's what released judgment on Israel. Those same words were spoken by our own leaders here in America the day after 9/11. Tom Daschle spoke those words in the Senate.
In the Congress, Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then John Edwards at the time, who was still a part of our government.
On the anniversary.
Spoke it on the anniversary. Now, how does this all tie? Again, one more question just in case somebody didn't see the programs we've done. How do events that took place thousands of years ago, how are they connected to present-day America?
Well, first of all, God speaks through the Bible. God is a consistent God. He speaks through the Bible. He warns nations. He's still the same. And America, as Israel has been blessed, was dedicated to God as Israel was. It's not Israel, but it was dedicated. It has been blessed by God. And now it's turning away from God as Israel did. And now, so the same pattern of warning and judgment is revealed now to us, because that's what's happening.
And there's 9 harbingers, and the word harbinger means warning signs. There's 9 of them in verse 10 of Isaiah chapter 9 that took place in Israel's history, that are taking place now in America, identical. Some of them almost to the very day. Explain that to me.
Yeah, well, all the 9 harbingers that were revealed in the last days of ancient Israel are now replaying. It's a replay. Some have appeared in New York City. Some have appeared in Washington, Capitol Hill. Some go to the White House. We haven't even touched on it. Some go to the president. But all of them, in one form or another, happen precisely, precision. And there's a mystery because, we left off last time. We were on Capitol Hill, and we were with Tom Daschle.
Yeah.
And he says, and not only does he say that vow, but at the end of it he says, that is what we will do. And he's clearly referring to Isaiah 9:10. He's saying, we, America, are going to do what ancient Israel did, which actually led to their destruction.
The bricks are falling down. We will build with hewn stones. The sycamores are cut down, but we'll change them into cedars. And interestingly, a sycamore tree, believe it or not, that was planted right there by ground zero actually fell on 9/11.
Yeah, yes. And we didn't even do this one.
I mean, that just blew me away when you told me that.
Yeah. And
okay, go ahead.
And we didn't even do that. We didn't even do this. The next harbinger, which we didn't do, was that it says the sycamores have fallen. We will replace them, or we will plant cedars in their place.
Right.
So another act of defiance. God, you're not humbling us. We're not turning back. The sycamores are down. We're going to take another tree. We're going to plant it right where the sycamore stood, and it's going to be a different tree. It's going to be a stronger tree to show you we're coming back stronger. The Hebrew word, they didn't speak English, of course. They didn't say cedar. They said erez. It's the erez tree in Hebrew. An erez tree can be a cedar today, but it also means a spruce. It means an evergreen conifer tree.
By the way, he's a rabbi. He's a Messianic rabbi. Jonathan Cahn is a rabbi from New York. He has actually a church.
Yeah.
Keep talking, brother. I'm fascinated by you. Go ahead.
So it says the erez tree. So they take this tree, they plant it exactly where the sycamore had stood, or the sycamore stood, and it's in Hebrew the word is kalaf. It means to plant a tree in a place of another. What does that have to do with America? Well, 2 years after 9/11, a tree appears in the sky. It's on this crane at the corner of Ground Zero, being lowered down into place to go exactly where the sycamore of Ground Zero stood. They're doing the act of replacement without realizing what they're doing. They're putting it exactly where it was. And what kind of tree is it that's coming up? Not a sycamore. It's a biblical Erez tree. It's the same tree that is in Isaiah, that ancient Israel.
Now this is cedar, so it's a different...
It's Erez, yeah. Cedar is English. The real word is Erez.
There's a tree now.
There's a tree right now at the corner of Ground Zero.
So if we go to New York right now, we'll see it.
You'll see a tree, and it's interesting. It's withering away. It's withering away. They put it there. That's
they planted the same tree Isaiah mentioned.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just where the sycamore stood, and they had a ceremony around the tree, just like with the stone.
Who's they?
This one was done by people in a church, which some spiritual leader, but I don't know where he's at, and they called it the Tree of Hope. And they said we're putting this tree just where the other tree was. I mean, they're saying exactly what Israel did. They're doing it. They don't know what they're doing either.
Now, Jonathan said something very amazing on the programs already that I want to repeat. That when Israel spoke the words of Isaiah 9:10, they were speaking in defiance, and God released judgment after they spoke those words. And those words were spoken by our leaders the day after 9/11.
Yes.
By Tom Dasher.
Yes.
And then later again by John Edwards. And later again by Obama himself, who paraphrased it.
Yes, and who then wrote the words, we mentioned last time, actually wrote the paraphrase on the beam of the tower of the Harbinger.
That's going up now.
It's going up right now. It's going to be the highest thing in America. It's going to be the words.
Wow.
And
that's what released judgment on Israel, those words, and now it's releasing judgment on us, on America.
It's not only the words. The fact is that the words are representing America, which is turning away from God. That's the significant. But it sealed it, and God says here, therefore, because you said that, because it's your heart, this judgment's going to come to you.
Now, David Wilkerson, of course, he's with the Lord now. You said that David actually spoke. Prophetically said the same thing?
I believe it was the week after 9/11, and remember, he didn't know the sycamore, and a lot of this happened after. He just said this from the Lord, and he said it word for word, and he actually said that vow. He said, this is the word God sent into America. And I didn't know that.
Isaiah 9:10.
Yes, he didn't know what was happening here. I didn't know he said that at the time, but it was there, that time.
Listen, I want to talk about the 7 years.
Yes, the Shemitah.
Talk about the Shemitah.
Okay.
What is the mystery of the Shemitah?
Okay, to set the stage, first off, the overall principle is this, and you see it in all the commentaries. If the nation doesn't respond to that first shaking, there's going to come a second shaking. The second shaking of America is not a building being attacked. It's the very collapse of American power. The Great Recession. We're still living in the shadow of this thing. And the Great Recession happens years later. First shaking, second shaking. Now, there's a mystery that goes back to Moses, goes back to Sinai.
But just before you go there, the second shaking, he said earlier, took place on 208, 7 years.
The Wall Street collapse. Yeah, the collapse of the American economy was in 208. Was the collapse, absolutely.
But that was 7 years exactly.
It was. We're gonna. Yeah. Yes.
Even to the day or what?
Well, we'll get to. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll get to that.
Go ahead. I think I'm rushing you. Go ahead.
And so. Yeah, what happened is the mystery of the Shemitah is this. Every 7 years in Israel, they had to stop sowing, stop reaping, stop farming, stop doing the economy, come to a rest. Sabbath year. The Sabbath year is called the Shemitah in Hebrew. On the last day of that Sabbath year, it was the peak. It's called Elul 29. 29th day of the Hebrew month, Elul. On that day, all debts are wiped out, all credits wiped out.
And Elul would be what month?
Elul is in autumn. It's going to be around this time. And what happens is the financial accounts are wiped clean. It was supposed to be a blessing, but when Israel turned away from God, they drove him out of their life. The Shemitah came back as a judgment. And they were taken into captivity by the years of the Shemitah, of the Sabbath year. Wow. So the Shemitah becomes a sign of judgment for Israel.
Wait, slow down. You said they were taken into captivity.
The southern kingdom, yes.
In the fall. At the time of the Shemitah.
Well, they were taken into captivity when they were destroyed in 586 BC, and they were taken the 70 years of captivity. God said it was for the 70 Shemitahs.
Yeah, exactly. I know that.
Yeah, so it comes back as a sign of judgment.
Whoa.
And so the thing is, so here it is. Here's a sign of judgment of a nation that has driven God out of its life, that strikes the financial realm. What can it have to do with America? America's not under the law. But as a sign, look what happens. 7-year mystery. You've got the first shaking, 2001. You got the second shaking, 2008, 7-year cycle. When did that collapse happen? September, 7 years to the month of 9/11. When exactly? To the second week of September, 7 years to the week of 9/11. When America was commemorating 9/11, on Wall Street, the second shaking is being set up. And on the peak day of the collapse was the end of September. It was the greatest stock market collapse in history. They opened up by ringing the bell. The bell would not ring. They took it as an omen. And what happens is
wait, the ring
did not happen.
Really?
They tried to ring.
I did not know that part.
Even they took it as an omen. And what happened is the greatest crash in American history. And when did it take place? Wipes out the financial accounts. It took place on the 29th day of Elul, the biblical day of the Shemitah, that's appointed to wipe away the financial accounts.
Same day?
Same day, same hours, because it's got to finish in the afternoon. It comes in the afternoon, finished, wipes away the financial accounts, and if you go back 7 years, 7-year mystery here, go back 7 years, you find September 2001, 9/11. But you also have the other greatest collapse in American history up to that day. The crash, it wipes out everything. When did it take place? The other one? It took place on the 29th of Elul, the exact biblical day of the Shemitah that is appointed to wipe that out as a sign on a nation that has driven God out of its life. The two greatest crashes in American history up to those days happened exactly 7 years apart, to the day, to the biblical hours. And in fact, only one day in 7 years can be the actual Shemitah. Both happened on the exact biblical
Now, you
day.
have a little clip you're going to show us, right?
Yes.
Which is,
Yes.
what does it show?
That's going to show you the crash and the Shemitah and the whole thing.
Now, are you saying that 7 years from now, because of that judgment began with the 9/11 collapse, are you saying that in 7 years from now something else could happen?
It could. I haven't been led to go with that.
But I mean, if America doesn't repent.
Well, I'll tell you when the next one is. I'll tell you the next one is September of 2015. That's the next one. Now the thing is that here it happens exactly between 9/11 and the second collapse. Could that happen at that time? It could. I'm not saying that's the timing. But people have asked, and that's when the next one is.
Let's look at this clip quickly about the second Shemitah.
Yes, the second
or the first.
Both.
All
yeah.
right. Let's look at that. We're going to come back. This is fascinating, and a whole lot more you're going to tell us. Plus, you're going to talk about something else. The grounds, the what now?
The mystery ground.
Which is what?
The mystery ground is behind this whole thing. It's going to bring it all home.
Now, that's going to be something that I don't even know yet what he means, but this man has gotten my attention. Watch this.
When did the economic collapse of America happen? This is the second shaking. It happened 7 years after the first shaking. It happened 7 years after 9/11. So if you didn't have 9/11, this would not have happened. That means even 9/11 is woven into the mystery, an ancient mystery of the Shemitah. When America was commemorating 9/11, the 7th anniversary, the second calamity was already beginning on Wall Street. And what happened? Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. Other companies went bankrupt. Debts and loans were wiped away. Financial accounts were wiped away. Shemitah, the bankruptcies, Shemitah, bailouts, foreclosures, Shemitah, nationalizations, crashes, swept over the world. It was a colossal Shemitah wiping out of financial accounts.
What started in America last year has now spread to every part of the world.
We're down 9% today. The Xetra DAX over in Frankfurt is down by 9%. The Paris market down by 9%. Austria, which was briefly suspended earlier on in the day, is down by nearly 11%.
So when was the peak of the financial collapse? It happened at the end of September in 2008. It was the greatest stock market crash in the history of Wall Street. And so when did this greatest crash take place? It took place on the 29th day of the month of Elul, on the exact biblical day specifically ordained to touch a nation's financial accounts. It took place on the exact biblical day that is a judgment to the nation that has driven God out of its life.
Traders here working the phones say a lot of their customers are freaked out, waiting to see how low the Dow will go.
We are just seconds to go until the start of trading at the New York Stock Exchange, and stocks set to kick off lower.
We're in the last days of this country surviving, And how in the world can we find the billions of dollars that we're borrowing from China and Japan?
What in the world is happening on Wall Street?
Two-year note yields went from 190 to 166 in the blink of an eye.
I have never live looked at the Dow Jones Industrial Board and seen a 600-point loss.
And it marked the end of a 7-year period, and the key number of the Shemitah is 7. And so how much of Wall Street was wiped out that day? 7%. How many points exactly were dropped? 7, 7, 7. That was an end of a 7-year cycle. So there should be another event 7 years before that began it in the financial realm. The first crash took place on September 17, 2001, the greatest stock market crash in history up to that time. And it would keep that record for 7 years. So right there, you have the Shemitah. You have a 7-year period beginning with the greatest crash and ending with the greatest crash on September 29, 2008.
There is a little bit of a consternation down here about there being no bell. Our market reporters are standing by. Bob Pisani, have you ever seen anything like no bell?
Yeah, that's a little strange here.
Because the opening bell of Wall Street wouldn't sound. People took it as a bad omen. But what date was September 17th on the Hebrew calendar? And the answer is stunning. September 17, 2001 was also the 29th day of Elul, the day when a nation's financial accounts are wiped away. So the two greatest stock market point crashes in the history of Wall Street up to that date happened on the exact, both of them, on the exact biblical day ordained to touch a nation's financial realm. Exactly 7 Hebrew years apart. It's mind-boggling. But even beyond that, Elul 29 comes around once every year, and that would be enough. But it's even more than that. Only one Elul 29 can start or end the Shemitah. And that comes around only once every 7 years. So when did the crash of 2008 happen? It wasn't only on Elul 29. It was on the specific exact Elul 29 that comes around only once every 7 years that can end the Shemitah or fulfill the Shemitah. In fact, when it was happening, when the markets of the world were crashing, at the same time in Israel, Orthodox Jews were symbolically erasing their debts. And that means that the other Shemitah, 2001, also took place on the one and only Elul 29 that can end the Shemitah. The Shemitah means literally in Hebrew, it can mean the release, but it can also mean the letting fall or the collapse, the letting collapse. So what was the Shemitah? Not only the collapse of the economy, according to an ancient mystery, but it's the letting collapse of the American-led world order. It's letting collapse America's prosperity that had been there, the leadership that had been there from the end of the Second World War. It's all collapsing. This is the Shemitah, the sign of judgment on a nation's economy and finance, for a nation that once knew God, but drove him out, a warning that its blessings will be removed if it does not turn back to God.
Amazing. I mean, to me, that's fascinating. Really, it is mind-blowing.
Yeah. And
now, you know, you said it could happen again in 2015.
Yeah, I'm not led to pinpoint that as a timing, but people have asked, when's the next one? It's September of 2015. You know, and the thing, but either way, the overall pattern is we're heading towards the same thing that Israel did.
It all began with 9/11, when our protection was gone, our cover was gone, just like with Israel. And now we're in this process of judgment still. We're not out of it.
It's not stopping. It's not stopping.
On America, not on us, the church, not on us believers.
Yes. And there's a message for the church. And again, this message is ultimately has hope for those who listen. Okay. It's hope for America, hope for God's people.
Okay, but now we as the church will not be affected because as long as we walk with God and are humble before God and so forth.
I will say this, that if people say, well, what do we do? The word in Hebrew for safety is Yeshua, salvation, Yeshua, Jesus.
Stay close to Jesus. That's it.
So the main thing is, listen, what my advice is, you get everything into Jesus. Make sure everything in your life is into Jesus, into Yeshua. He's the answer to judgment.
Let's talk about the mystery grounds. What do you mean by that? I'm waiting for the answer because I have no clue what you're going to say, brother.
Okay. There's a principle that happened with Israel that when the judgment came to Israel, it returned to the nation's ground of dedication. Where the nation was dedicated to God was the Temple Mount.
Right.
Solomon
Moriah.
there.
Okay.
Yeah. Solomon there. He had gathered the nation. They prayed. He prayed for the future. God, what happens if they fall away from you and all that? And it's all that ground is the dedication ground. When judgment finally came, the destruction returns to the ground, to the temple. When it returns to the Temple Mount, people, it's God saying, you got to return. Look what you've fallen from. So this is the key. It returns to that ground. What could it have to do with America? There is a day in America's history that parallels a day in Israel, and that is the first day of America as a fully formed nation that we know of, as today we know, was not 1776. It was 1789, when for the first time there was a president. Washington was sworn in that day.
Yeah.
Sworn in the capital city. And when he was sworn in, he gives a prophetic warning to America. And basically what he's saying is, and without going to the whole thing, he says basically what's going to happen if America ever turns away from God. What's going to happen? And he literally at times would talk about the protection of God. So here he's saying basically if America ever turns away from God, the blessings are going to be removed. He says it. Then the government, the first government of America, President, Congress, Senate, all that, they all go on foot to the place appointed to pray. The first act that the American government did together was to pray. And they dedicate America's future to God in that ground. So if we can find out where that ground is, we've got a mystery. This is the dedication ground. On the first day, where is it? It was in the nation's capital. The first capital wasn't Washington, D.C. The first capital of America was New York City. It was where? Lower Manhattan. Where exactly did they go to dedicate America to God that day? They went to this specific ground. America's dedication ground is Ground Zero.
Are you serious?
Yes. Ground Zero.
That's historically proven.
That is historic. They went to the corner of Ground Zero and they prayed right there. Washington, Adams, the government, all there, gathered there. And actually the ground where the World Trade Center was actually owned by the church. It was church land. They went into this little...
Whoa, stop. That was church property where they built the Twin Towers?
Yes, it was owned.
I never heard that.
It was owned by the church where they prayed to dedicate America to God. And in fact, that ground was the ground where the sycamore appeared. That was the ground where they did the act of replacing the tree. The harbingers, those harbingers appeared on America's consecration ground. It was on that soil. And when 9/11 happened, a shockwave goes forth from the dedication ground, Ground Zero, hits another place, strikes it. That place is Federal Hall, where Washington gave the warning of what would happen if America turned away from God. And it strikes the place and puts a crack in the foundation of America. And all around Ground Zero, all the buildings are destroyed or ruined except one is protected. And they called it the miracle of 9/11. And the building that was protected was the little stone chapel where they dedicated America to God. And the reason they said it was protected is because there was an object that absorbed the force of 9/11, protected it. What was the object? The object was the harbinger. It was the sixth harbinger. It was the sycamore. The sycamore, as it was struck down, actually protected the ground where America was consecrated. So the message of the harbingers and the message of the harbinger is not to condemn America, it's to save America.
And the word harbinger means warning sign. Keep talking. This is amazing.
So the point is, I believe people say, is there hope? If there was no hope, I don't believe there would be harbingers. I don't believe there would be a warning. The whole point is hope. And the thing is, here's the other connection. When Solomon was praying over that dedication, that's the time when God gave him that word that people know. The word was, if my people who are called by my name.
So how about tomorrow? What happens? What do we do as Christians?
Well, the first thing that goes right with this is that we say America, America. Revival begins with us. Revival begins with God's people. It says, if my people. It's not Hollywood. It's not Wall Street. Revival begins with us.
But if we, as God's people, don't humble ourselves and pray and so on, then what happened to Israel will happen to us, basically.
The pattern of the mystery here is that if the nation doesn't turn back to God, if we don't, then what's going to happen is going to be one shaking after the next shaking until it either repents or is judged. And what we can witness, and what we can witness, and from the mystery, is that one of the things there is that America's crown as head of nations, the American age that we've known about all our lives, will end. Because if we turn away from God and do not turn back, the blessings will be removed.
Well, eventually it will end because America is not even mentioned in prophecy. Listen, this book is a must because this will show you and clear up certain questions you have about America's future is in this book. What happened in Israel in their history is really parallel to what's going on now in America. Now, tell me a little more about what else is in this book.
There's the mystery of the three witnesses we haven't even touched on. That the Bible says that there are 2 or 3 witnesses with a matter of judgment.
Right.
So with the nation, there are 3 witnesses, and one of the witnesses is the President of the United States.
What do you mean by that?
One of those.
Okay, now we can't talk about this because you got to read the book. Okay,
yeah, it's there. There is a mystery called Buttonwood, that there was a sign on the day that America began its rise to financial superpower. There was a sign that was there, appeared. That same sign reappeared on 9/11 in a different form that foreshadows the fall of America. There's all sorts of things in here we can just touch upon. But
Suzanne read this book and told me it was one of the most awesome books she has ever read as a Christian.
Well, I can tell you, Benny.
Suzanne, my wife, I mean, it's amazing.
I've never wrote a book, and when I started writing this...
This is your only book?
Yeah, it's the first book I ever wrote, and it just flowed. I literally flowed out. It was fast, happened, barely took any, it just happened, and now it's going across the country. I believe it's for this time and for every believer and beyond.
Well, it's a bestseller. I mean, here's what it says. The Harbinger is mind-blowing. The most important book to uncover the mystery behind 9/11, the crash of Wall Street, America's future, and much more. All in this book.
Yeah.
Now, these 2 DVDs. Listen. I saw a part of this. It blew me away, okay? And I just saw a part of it. I'm going to watch the whole thing tonight, brother, tonight. This is awesome. Tell them more on what's on this 2 DVDs.
Yeah, each one is different, and they go together. And this one is 2 DVDs. Is actually, you're going to see everything we're talking about. Everything when we speak about someone doing this or something, you're going to see the clips of it. You're going to see all the images of it. So it's actually, you're kind of living through it. It's done very powerfully as like a documentary, and it's done where you show this to somebody, they're going to get it like right away.
And they're showing this in churches.
They're beginning to
People are getting saved, watching
and
this.
repenting and coming into prayer for America.
This is like proving to people there's a God.
Even
what's happening, even atheists,
Yep.
that what's happening in America is not just by chance.
Yeah, this is to believer and non-believer alike.
Make sure to get both. The book for a gift of $30 to the ministry, the 2 DVDs for a gift of $30, both for $50 to the ministry by calling the number on the screen now. Get this today. It may shake you up, but I think it'll be good. And think about what it'll do to families. There's people who are not saved in those families. Exactly. It may bring them to the Lord.
Exactly. We're getting reports it's already happening.
Get it today, precious saints. This is awesome. And become a partner with me. And as you do, I will send you as my thank you treasury of hymns. That is a beautiful CD with all my most favorite hymns. And I'm believing God for a fresh anointing on our lives. Make sure to get today this anointing oil that's been prayed over. God, I believe with all my heart, is sending a fresh anointing. I know it in my soul. Do it today. This is for any gift. Send it today. Wow, Jonathan. Thank you. Please come back.
Thank you.
Be with me again. This is so amazing. And don't forget to ask for the Harbinger and the 2 DVDs for a gift of $50 or each for $30. Love you. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.
In just a few days, Pastor Benny will be in San Jose, California to conduct great miracle healing services at Jubilee Christian Center. Join him on Thursday, January 24th at 7 p.m. and again on Friday, January 25th at 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. Then Pastor Benny will be in the Los Angeles area at Faithful Central Bible Church in Inglewood to hold miracle healing services on Saturday, January 26th and Sunday, January 27th at 7 each evening.